Corporal Jack Mallory lay prone behind a fallen mahogany log, the humid Philippine air heavy around him. He watched 200 Japanese soldiers assemble for a charge, unaware of his unique plan. His lifetime of hunting ducks would soon dictate the survival of his entire squad. Within the next 11 minutes, he would account for 89 enemy lives. It was 0547 on November 12, 1944. A dawn like countless others. Yet for the 22 men of Mallory's isolated squad, it felt profoundly different. They were trapped on Lady Island, a small clearing encircled by dense jungle. The echoes of yesterday's ambush still fresh in their minds. Lieutenant Harrison estimated 200 enemy soldiers in the surrounding foliage. With no radio contact, there was no chance of reinforcement. Their orders were stark: fix bayonets and dig shallow fighting positions. They prepared for a final stand against an overwhelming force. Survival was a distant hope, perhaps a 10% chance if fortune smiled. But Jack Mallory carried a different kind of preparation. At 29 years old, he was a duck hunter from Lubeck, Maine, a skill honed over 18 years in the coastal marshes. Since age 11, he learned to track fast-flying waterfowl, to lead a target, to shoot instinctively, smoothly, without conscious aim. He understood the art of sweep shooting, moving the gun barrel continuously through a flock, firing to hit multiple birds with a sustained swing. This was not the standard military doctrine of aimed, controlled bursts, but Mallory believed these duck hunting rules offered their only chance. His Browning automatic rifle, or BAR, was a formidable weapon, firing .30-06 rounds at 500 rounds per minute. Yet even this firepower felt inadequate against 200 screaming bayonet-fixed men. They were charging from 80 yards away on Lady Island. When Mallory proposed using his bar like a shotgun sweeping through the mass, rather than picking individual targets, his platoon sergeant had scoffed. Lieutenant Harrison, though skeptical, had little left to lose. He gave Mallory all available bar ammunition, 12 magazines totaling 240 rounds. At 0530, Mallory positioned himself behind a fallen mahogany log at the clearing's edge, laying out his magazines in a precise order, his bar loaded and ready. Dawn broke at 5:45. The air 76 degrees, humid, a light eastern breeze. Perfect weather, he might have thought, for hunting back in Maine. At precisely 5:47, the jungle erupted, and the Japanese emerged not in waves, but as a single unified mass, screaming, their bayonets glinting, running at full speed. The squad's M1 Garands and Thompson submachine guns opened fire, standard aimed shots. They dropped perhaps 15 Japanese in the first 10 seconds, but 185 kept coming, closing the distance from 70 to 60 yards. The collective fire of 22 men could not stem the tide. Then Mallory began his work. He shouldered the bar and began to sweep. He tracked the front edge of the charge like a flock of ducks crossing left to right, the bar barrel moving smoothly, firing continuously. The technique was an instinct refined over years: track, lead, sweep, fire. The first 20-round magazine emptied in 4 seconds, rounds spreading across the mass. 6 Japanese soldiers dropped, not because they were aimed at, but because they ran directly into the weapon stream of fire. Mallory dropped the empty magazine, loaded another, and resumed sweeping, fluid and automatic. The second magazine swept right to left. 8 more Japanese fell. The charge was 50 yards away, still advancing, still screaming. Mallory swept the center of the mass with his third magazine, and 10 more soldiers dropped. For the first time, a slight waver, a gap in the front line appeared. By the fourth magazine, sweeping the left flank, 9 more fell. 30 seconds into the charge, Mallory had fired 80 rounds, bringing down perhaps 30 Japanese. It wasn't enough to stop them entirely, but something was shifting. The charge was slowing, not stopping, but perceptibly decelerating. Japanese soldiers were witnessing their comrades fall in groups, seeing the impossible gaps appearing in their ranks. witnessing one American with one rifle cutting through them. The fifth magazine, a right-to-left sweep, dropped 12 more. The charge was now 30 yards away, and with the sixth magazine sweeping left to right, the front line truly disintegrated, and 15 Japanese fell. The organized mass was breaking into scattered individuals, some still surging forward, others slowing, some beginning to hesitate. At 20 yards, Mallory unleashed his seventh magazine into the center of those still committed, and 14 more dropped. The remaining attackers broke, turning to retreat. But 60 or 70 Japanese were too committed, too close to turn back. Now within 15 yards, Mallory could see their faces. His eighth magazine, a point-blank sweep left to right, cut through them. 20 Japanese fell in 3 seconds. The few survivors now passed him. At hand-to-hand range, Mallory dropped the bar and drew his M1911 pistol. The rest of his squad, having survived the initial onslaught, met the remaining Japanese. With bayonets, rifle butts, and knives, 10 seconds of brutal close-quarters violence ensued. And then, silence fell over the jungle clearing. The clearing was covered with Japanese bodies, a testament to the ferocity. Mallory's squad, though wounded and exhausted, was alive. All 22 men had survived the onslaught. Mallory picked up his bar. He still had 4 magazines left. At 5:58, just 11 minutes after it began, the battle was over. The squad counted 127 Japanese dead in the clearing. While most were felled by the combined fire of the squad, 89 had been killed by Mallory's bar. 89 soldiers stopped by sweep shooting techniques adapted from duck hunting. The remaining 73 Japanese had retreated into the jungle, broken and defeated. Lieutenant Harrison approached Mallory at 06:15, still bewildered by the events. He asked how Mallory knew his unconventional method would work. Mallory's response was simple. Ducks fly at 40 miles per hour in flocks of 20 or 30. I've been shooting them for 18 years. Japanese infantry charge at about 12 miles per hour in groups of 200. Slower targets, bigger flocks, same principle, he explained calmly. Harrison recommended Mallory for the Silver Star, noting exceptional marksmanship and tactical innovation in defensive operations, though the word ducks was absent. American forces relieved Mallory's squad later that afternoon. The documented success of his technique had a profound effect. In December 1944, Mallory was pulled from front-line duty. He was assigned to infantry training at Division Rear. For 2 months, he taught other BAR gunners the basics of sweep shooting. Not everyone possessed the innate hand-eye coordination and instinctive tracking skills. Skills that took years to develop hunting waterfowl, like in Maine. But those with similar backgrounds grasped it immediately. By February 1945, sweep shooting was officially recognized as an alternative bar technique for defense against mass assaults, a supplementary tactic for specific dire situations. Mallory returned to the United States in June 1945, back to Lubeck, Maine, and resumed guiding duck hunts with the same shotgun in the same marshes. Decades later, in 1968, an infantry school instructor researching defensive tactics stumbled upon after-action reports detailing Mallory's engagement. He tracked Mallory down, then 53 and still guiding. Mallory confirmed the details, yet remained modest, stating any experienced duck hunter with a BAR could have achieved the same results. He observed that tracking ducks, changing direction mid-flight, was actually harder. Japanese infantry, he noted, ran in straight lines. In 1969, Mallory donated his BAR to Fort Moore, where its display mentions his service, though few visitors connect it to the dramatic story of November 12, 1944. Nevertheless, in Army infantry training, the core principle of Mallory's engagement is still referenced. That certain hunting skills provide tactical capabilities that standard military training alone cannot replicate. Tracking moving targets, sweep shooting, instinctive fire control, these skills, honed on ducks, proved transferable to humans. Jack Mallory passed away in 1984 at the age of 69. His obituary in the local Maine newspaper mentioned his guiding business and his World War II service in a single understated sentence. It did not mention the incredible 11 minutes that saved his squad, nor how his unique application of duck hunting techniques fundamentally altered Army deployment. It is often how it goes with men whose individual innovations change the course of conflict. Credit finds its way into doctrine writers' manuals and training guides, but the true genesis often lies with an unexpected ordinary skill transformed by an extraordinary moment.